Hello, Chicago. Thank you for tuning in to African International House on CAN TV. I am your host this evening, Tamela Odom. It is my hope that you are staying warm on this cold Thursday evening in Chicago, and we ask you to sit tight because we know that spring is around the corner someplace real soon. Now, every evening on Thursday nights here on CAN TV, African International House will bring you programming centered around Africa, where you won't even have to leave your television, your tablet, or your computer. And if you would like to listen to our program live on your computer, tablet, or whatever you have internet based, you can do so at www.cantv.org/hotline. So feel free to tell your friends and family that we are on the air. Now, we have some special events that we'd like to share with you, so get a pad and pencil because you may want to write these things down. On tomorrow evening, which is February 27th, the Association for the Advancement of Creative Musicians will perform at 7 p.m. and you would like to support them, you can do so. And the AACM is devoted to nurturing, performing, and recording serious musicians and their character. So this is going to be an awesome event celebrating Black History Month. And then on February 28th, you can hear and learn about the history of Black doll collecting. And this is an excellent segue into our program this evening, but I'll give you more information about that later on. So all of these events will take place at the Center for Contemporary African Art and Culture, which is the African International House headquarters, and that is 6200 South Drexel Avenue in Chicago. If you would like to have more information, you can give them a call at 773-995-ARTS, and that's 773-995-7742. So hopefully you will be able to support those two events. We have an awesome guest this evening that we would like to share with you. And she's going to give you information on how you can support Mother Africa by offering them a hand up, not just a hand out. So stay tuned for that. And if you have questions for our guest, you can give her a call at 312-738-1060. Again, that's 312-738-1060. Now, before we get into our program today, I'd like to share with you information about African history and African American history on this day, February 26th. Now, in African history, in 1961, Muhammad V, King of Morocco, died and was succeeded by his son, King Hassan II. So that's something interesting about African history. And in African American history, on this day in 1964, boxer Cassius Clay changed his name to Muhammad Ali, and we know him very well by that name. And this was a symbol of his conversion from Christianity to Islam. And finally, in 1926, on this day, historian, author, and journalist Carter G. Woodson started Negro History Week, and that later evolved into Black History Month. That happened on this day in 1926. So there you have it, facts about African history and facts about African American history. So let's move forward to speak to our guest this evening. She is the founding director of Project Harambee, which is a 501c3 organization dedicated to providing assistance to Africans affected by HIV. And we know that's an extremely important issue that we need to talk about. So again, if you have questions for our guest, who is Dr. Kathleen Harrison, feel free to give us a call here at the studio, 312-738-1060. Again, that telephone number is 312-738-1060. Welcome to the show, Kathleen.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here.
And you have a lot that we're going to talk about, and I wish you could see all the things that we have on our table spread out. A lot of fun things that we're going to share with you on our program this evening. And I wanted to start off by asking you, Kathleen, to tell our viewers more about Project Harambee.
I always start by saying, I'm just a gal from the south side of Chicago. I never, ever wanted to go to Africa. I feel that maybe Africa wanted me to come because I did go to Africa for the first time as a professor on board a university ship in the spring semester of 2001. And my idea of Africa was to go on safari and have a lot of fun and see all the beautiful sights of Africa. Instead, I was asked to lead a group of volunteers, students from our group, and we went to an orphanage that was for HIV positive children. Of course, they were all orphans, and we volunteered there. It was a place of stark black and white. It was very sad because most of the children at that time were dying, but it was very beautiful because they were happy and well cared for, and that experience changed us all.
You know, I would agree, Kathleen. I haven't had an opportunity to visit Kenya, but I did have an opportunity this summer to visit Ghana, and I will say that it was a life-changing experience, so I can certainly agree with you there. I had an opportunity to visit your website, and for those people who are watching our program, I would encourage you to visit the website, and that is www.projectharambe.org. So you can visit that website there. Again, that's www.projectharambe, and it's HARAMBEE.org. And I really wanted to know more so about, you have so many programs, Kathleen, that I think are phenomenal, but there are two that I thought were extremely interesting, and I wanted to talk more about those this evening. You have a program called Animals for Africa.
Yes.
And you also have a program called Solar Lamps for Students. Talk to us
Yes.
about those two programs.
Well, the Animals for Africa came about as just an idea that floated up. And it's similar to Heifer International, which many of the viewers will be familiar with. However, because we're a small nonprofit with almost no overhead at all, I like to think that we can be flexible and do things a little bit more personably. For instance, if a family here or a person here is willing to donate $150 to supply an African family with a high-yield dairy goat, we offer them the opportunity to name the goat.
Okay.
Okay? They also get a lovely handmade gift card that they can give for a wedding, a birthday, for Christmas. We hand make each of these cards and personalize them. We also provide families with chickens. We have gift cards for chickens as well, with pigs, and these all support our Animals for Africa. We have a number of different programs, but what we emphasize about these programs is they do give people a hand up, not a handout. Everybody that we provide with an animal has to give back to the community in some way.
Which is extremely important.
Yes.
Now talk a little bit more about that program, because I think folks here in America may not see the value of having a chicken or having a dairy cow. And I'm sure those in Africa that you are assisting, they see the value in that. So maybe just talk about the difference or the comparison.
Well, of course, the culture and the economy in most sub-Saharan African countries is quite different from ours. We are an industrialized nation, and by and large, Kenya, for instance, is composed of people who are farmers, and their income is very low. The Kenyan economy, although it's growing, it is not strong. So people really do live quite on the edge. There is no cushion for them should there be an emergency, should they need surgery. Many of them have to fight and struggle very hard, work hard to just get a few dollars funding to send their children to school. So there are many who do not have, certainly not $150 to buy a high-yield dairy goat, nor $15 to buy a pair of chickens.
And again, that's an awesome way to give that hand up instead of a handout, because it allows those that you share these animals with, where they can continue to get the things that they need to produce the milk and maybe slaughter the cow if they need to, or those things. So it's very important.
Also, all of these families are HIV positive families. We don't ask, I don't need to know that, but because we work with clinics and with other organizations on the ground in the countries, we largely work with groups that serve HIV positive people. So having very rich dairy goat milk, to feed to the children is extremely important. This goat milk is almost like medicine, because by and large the nutrition status is very poor, and because healthcare, education, and economics all work together to build a community. we have some project in all three of those areas in any given community.
That's extremely important. Now, Kathleen, I think that's an excellent segue to talk about your work with those who are infected in Africa with HIV and AIDS. So talk to our audience a little bit more about that.
After my university experience traveling in Kenya, a few years later I went back by myself and traveled around the country and was deeply affected by what I saw. I saw what this pandemic had done to undermine the growing middle class of a country. So all the way home I kept thinking, what can I do? What can I do? I'm a scientist by training, and I didn't know what impact I could have, but I started asking questions, and thus was born Harambee. We started out helping, in particular, widows, mothers with children. They needed money quite often because HIV is still a terrible stigma over in Africa. Quite often, if a woman contracts HIV, her husband has likely already died. She caught the infection from him. She is ostracized and has no way to earn a living for her children. But they're smart women, they're very creative, they're industrious, they are extremely hard workers. So I started out by forming co-op groups, and now we have a number of groups that make really quite lovely things that people can find out more about.
Tell us more. What is that?
On our website.
Okay.
This is a set of 3 nesting boxes.
Okay.
And these are made, and perhaps you could lift up the bowl too. These beautiful bowls are
Handmade.
Handmade. I couldn't do this in a month of Sundays. By a woman who is a widow, and her little boy is blind.
Oh.
And I hired her to teach this skill to our other groups. And I went back later, and she didn't have her child with her, and I was scared to ask because people up and die all the time. But she smiled, and she said, Keen, with the money that I earned from you, I was able to put Kevin into a private boarding school for the handicapped.
Oh, that's awesome.
So each one of these crafts is made by a woman in Kenya who has a very moving story like that. So we aren't saving the world, but
you're brightening your corner.
exactly.
Where you
and
are.
for this lady, Anne Warimu, and her son, we have changed the world for them forever.
Let's stop there, Kathleen. I believe we have a caller for you.
Okay?
Caller, you're on the air. What's your question or comment?
Hi, my name's John, and my question was, Heil Hitler, nigger, 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 nigger.
Okay, so let's talk. I think that's a good segue when you talked about the HIV infection in Africa. Let's talk more about the program that you have for students in Africa. You talk about on your website, Project Harambee offers medical scholarships for promising Kenyan students with no resources for education. Talk to us more about that.
Well, that is a program that we are most proud of. Initially, I thought it would be a good idea to bring medical volunteers over to Kenya. As time went by, it occurred to me that a much better idea is building capacity within the country. So we started on our program. Again, we network, we have friends in Kenya, and we work with organizations on the ground. They referred to us candidates who were very well qualified, graduates from high school, but they had no resources to go on for higher education. Each of these students had lost at least one parent to HIV/AIDS, so they were highly motivated not only to work hard, but to alleviate suffering and to contribute to society. So we started our Plant a Seed, Grow a Doc program. In this last year, we've had 6 graduates.
That's awesome.
We're very proud. We have 6 more in the pipeline.
Okay.
And God willing, we can get enough donations that we'll be able to continue to recruit candidates.
With your graduates, are they go on to college or are they graduates of college? Talk to us a little bit more about that.
Well, the education system in Kenya is very different from ours in the United States, and students go on to professional school right after they finish high school or secondary school. So We've had some students go into a diploma program where they become a clinical officer, which is comparable to a physician's assistant here in the United States. But most of the basic health care in Kenya is provided by those clinical officers. But this year we have accepted students into Mount Kenya University's medical school. So they will be there for 6 years. And this also is not just charity. We expect a lot back from those students, and they have delivered beautifully. They do volunteer work during their school years. They also mentor incoming students, because it's quite an adjustment coming to a middle-class university from a very poor background. They also agree to work for 3 years post-graduation in a medically underserved area.
That's awesome. So that's their way of giving
They
a hand
give
up
back.
as well, giving
Exactly,
back.
yes.
How expensive is it to attend college in Kenya?
Well, that's such a great question. I'm glad you asked it. Your viewers might faint with shock, because everything, room and board, transportation, books, a clothing allowance, is about $5,500 a year.
That's U.S. dollars.
U.S. dollars, yes.
And even though that may seem to be a nominal fee for college, for someone who doesn't have any money, that's a lot.
The average wage in Kenya is less than $2 a day
Wow.
for subsistence farmers and many others. So, yes, these students would never have been able to achieve
pay
a
for
higher
that.
education.
And I'm sure you get some sort of fulfillment just to see that you have graduates that are moving forward and you have more in the pipeline.
It's very fulfilling, and these students have formed a cohesive group. They support each other, they look out for each other. So again, we are building community, because Harambee is all about building bridges, building bridges between us here in the United States with those across the sea, but also among people in the countries where we work, wherever we can.
I'm sure listeners and viewers out there, you can see that Project Harambee has so many awesome programs that they are bringing to those folks in Kenya. And if you have questions for Dr. Kathleen Harrison, feel free to give us a call here at the studio. Our telephone number is 312-738-1060. Again, that telephone number right there on your screen is 312-738-1060. Now, we have a lot of fun things that we have to talk about before we go off the air. Let's start with your project. Is it Brown Doll Project? Am I correct?
It is.
Talk to us about that.
And this is a little offshoot project that I had never planned, but some of the more fun projects just come about almost by accident.
I remember these things, the Cabbage Patch Dolls.
I had a little brown skin doll that I brought over last year with me, tucked into my suitcase. And one of our wonderful helpers over there, Thomas Nyawir, has a little girl. So I pulled out this brown doll and I said, Thomas, maybe your daughter Audrey would like this.
Yeah.
And he looked shocked. And I said, Thomas, why do you look so shocked? And he said, I've never seen a doll with brown skin. And I said, what are you talking
Wow.
about? This is Africa.
Yeah.
Everybody has brown
Yeah.
skin. And he just shrugged his shoulders. Well, I went to a store similar to Target, the Nakubat in Nairobi. I went over by the toys, and there were rows and rows of dolls, and every doll had blue eyes and blonde hair and pink skin.
Wow.
And I was flabbergasted and very upset.
No
because
dolls that look like them.
what message is this giving
Yeah.
to African children? Now, most of the children in the areas where we work, they never get any doll. They're very poor. Their parents cannot afford to go buy toys. However, I got on my high horse. I was very unhappy about seeing all those pink dolls, and I came home and started collecting dolls with brown skin so that every little girl and some
How
little
cute is
boys in
that?
Africa can have a doll with brown skin. And the response has been overwhelming. We've got more doll. I'm going to have to hire a ship to get them all over. But I especially want to give a shout out to the National Sorority Delta Sigma Theta, because they have picked this up and run with it. And they are also going to be talking about the Brown Doll Project at their Red Hot Fashion Show
Oh,
on
when is that
April
gonna be?
12th.
Okay.
April 12th in Addison. If you just Google Red Hot Fashion Show,
will
Addison,
see.
Illinois, April 12th, you'll find it.
So this is great. So talk about how the sorority Delta Sigma Theta has gotten involved in the project. Are they helping you find more dolls? Are they helping you ship the dolls over to Kenya?
Well, right now, a member of my faith community is a member of Delta, and she went to her local chapter in Glen Ellen.
Okay.
Her name is Crystal Brown. I owe her a lot. She approached them, and they took this on as a project. Because I was collecting secondhand dolls. This is a gently used doll that I got at a thrift shop. We pinch every penny, and we make it go far. Well, if I pay $1 for a doll, then that's $9 that I could spend on another of our projects. But Crystal picked this up, brought it to her sorority, and they started collecting dolls. The North Carolina chapter of the Deltas also picked it up and are participating.
So it's growing. That's awesome.
They have boxes and boxes of dolls that they're shipping to me. I don't know if you can see this picture very well, but I was able to get a suitcase of dolls over to Kenya right before Christmas and had them distributed at a home for vulnerable children and orphans. So it was extremely rewarding to see these lovely little kids get a doll for Christmas. And the little boys also like dolls, and we had little brown boy dolls for them, but we also have been collecting Matchbox cars for the older little boys. Yeah.
And you know, I've heard, and research tells us too, that dolls are therapeutic for children, and I'm sure that this is a good idea for these children who have suffered so much grief by losing a parent to HIV or AIDS. So this is an awesome project that you have here. And in our last few moments, talk to us about maybe some of the things that you have here on the table or any upcoming projects that you may have. We can also flip through some of your photographs that you have, Kathleen. Maybe you might want to share with our audience.
Sure. The as I mentioned, all of our crafts have a story, and we try to use recycled materials in our craft projects. This is sub-Saharan Africa. These are many of the countries. People don't realize how vast Africa is. United States and China and a couple other countries could actually fit within the continental borders of Africa.
Wow.
And if you want to go on, Africa is like another planet. You can just keep going.
Sure,
yeah, it
sure.
is so beautiful. These are all my pictures. I swear when you get off the plane, you turn into an instant National Geographic photographer.
Wow. You were pretty close to take that photograph.
Sometimes a little too close. There's a lot of stories here, but these are the beautiful treasures of Africa that they are keeping alive to share with the world, and doing a good job of doing that. Africa religious values are often, their figures are often portrayed as Americans, African Americans, or Africans, excuse me, and why not? Some of these are just scenes of poverty. Little kids playing jump rope with a tripled over piece of recording tape.
Even still, they find something happy to,
you know, kids are kids.
Rejoice about in the midst of that.
And they will be happy anywhere. But people make do. This is in a hospital. This is a high school in Kibera where we first started working. And little girls who go to school, though they aren't wearing shoes.
Wow.
Oh, this you don't want to try at home. This was a home where they were delivering a set of bunk beds on a motorcycle.
Wow.
Yeah, uphill.
You have to use your resources, is that right?
Now this picture is extremely important because this was in Uganda at a school, and we were able to bring a suitcase with toys for the children. Each child selected one. The first child knelt down and bowed, and I said to the teacher, "Why is she doing that?" And she said, "That's a holdover from colonial times. It's a sign of respect." I did not think that was a good idea. If you'll go to the next picture, I intervened and showed the kids how to give a high five.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's what they did to say thank you.
Oh, that's awesome. Well, we thank you, Kathleen, for sharing your photographs of Africa with us and your brown dolls and Project Harambee. And if you could, in our last few moments, share with our audience how they can contact you off air if they'd like to be volunteering for your project.
We have a lot of needs. We'd love to hear from you. You can go to our website, www.projectharambee.org. projectharambee.org, or we have a very active Facebook page, Project Harambee NFP. That stands for Not For Profit. And if you look for the little icon that you saw at our first slide with the mom and the baby with the flag, you'll find us.
Thank you, Kathleen, for being with us on air, and thank you everyone for tuning in to our program, and we'll see you again on next Thursday evening. Good night, Chicago.